glad that we was able to connect, and that's perfectly fine. I wish you all the best of success in your endeavors, and let's stay in contact. Be blessed.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm hoping this worked out. For whatever reason, my stream crashed on me. So I'm going to give this a minute just to make sure that everybody's popped back in. I know it went dark. Okay, so I'm looking now. So I see myself on on LinkedIn. So we're all squared away. Yo, my heart dropped for a minute. Welcome to another episode of AMA with LCJ. It's your girl, Latoya Collins Jones. For those of y'all who do not know what AMA is, it's Ask Me Anything. Today, we're going to be talking about how safe is your space for innovation. And I will tell you, today's an exciting day. Today marks the 20th episode of AMA with LCJ. 20 episodes. So if you have not hopped in on YouTube and watched all of the lives back, it is 20 hours of free game, y'all. Just 20 whole hours of just watching those videos and me sharing and teaching. 20 episodes also will mark the end of what I will call season 1 of AMA with LCJ. It has been quite a journey. And so I want to share just a little bit about that. But thank you all for joining me. We're in for a treat. And so let's just go ahead and hop right on in. All right. So today we're going to be talking about how safe is your space for innovation. And so before I hop in, I really want to just share a little bit more about how and why I'm choosing to end, I'll say, not AMA with LCJ, but actually calling this season 1 done. And I'll be taking a little bit of a hiatus. So there's a couple things. Number one, anytime you are creating something new and building, you need space and places and time to kind of let it breathe. And so 20 episodes means I have 20 hours worth of content. And a lot of it has really been me just coming in and saying, I'm going to talk about this topic. I'm going to teach it. And then we're just going to keep rolling through. And so I want to take a time away to, number one, look at all the content I had, what was good, what wasn't, be able to really parse through that. And then be able to share little tidbits and snippets and going from there. You hear me a lot. If you've watched this live any amount of time, you hear me talk ad nauseum about James Clear and the power of habits, atomic habits. And one of the things he talks about is you do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. I have a pretty decent system with my lives, but I want to get better. I want to get more efficient to make sure that I'm fulfilling what it is I believe my purpose is, which is to really equip this generation and the next generation of leaders to truly impact their lives, the people they leave, the organizations they serve, in the communities in which they live. And that is my ultimate goal behind my company, behind doing these lives, is really to change the lives of leaders, to really champion the leadership life, not the role. And so with that, I'm excited about taking this break, but it's not going to be fully a break. If you've heard me talk, next week I'm going to be launching my Ignite Leadership Masterclass. It's not too late to join. It's 12 weeks. So a lot of the teachings, not even a lot, like a lot of the teachings that I've done here, you will get to hear in more depth. It's practicality, me coaching. So it's more in depth of what you'll be able to really experience. So if you've loved the lives, you're going to love the masterclass. And so that kicks off next week. So I'm excited. So that's 12 weeks of coaching and teaching every week. And so I want to be able to give all of my time and effort and energy to those students. And so therefore I will be taking 12, at least probably, I'd say, let's just say 12 to 15 week break while I'm teaching, because this particular class is really near and dear to my heart. And the other piece of the puzzle is I'm excited because I've just joined a business coaching class, a master class. It's a year-long program. And the first quarter, I also want to be able to give that as much time and space. And so between the class and launching into this masterclass of the one I'm teaching, the one I'm also the group that the community that I'm part of, I want to be able to not split my energy and mind into so many different ways. And so I believe in practicing what you preach. And so when you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so it's important to know what you're saying no to. And so in this season 1 will be wrapped up. I'll be back with season 2, hopefully better content, tighter system. But this isn't going anywhere. It's just, this is the last episode of the season. So we're going to be talking about how safe is your space for innovation. So one of the things, let Hold on, it's like, man, this make sure this mic isn't hot for me. Um, One of the things that I love talking about when we talk about innovation, right? When we talk about space and place, do you have a safe? Is your how safe is your space for innovation? Um, you know, innovation, I think, is one of these words that sounds really, really sexy in the workforce. But most companies, organizations, leaders don't always grasp what it takes to be innovative. Most people want to be innovative in a nice, neat little bubble with everything all tight and neat in a row. But the reality is, innovation is messy, it's sloppy, it can be stressful. Innovation is wrought with failure, right? All of these things are happening within the space of innovation. And so, if you want your team to be innovative, if you want your organization to be more innovative, you really have to take a step back and say, do I have the tolerance to actually withstand what it truly means to be innovative? Now, one of the things that I want to share with you, if we start to think about, hey, how do I know my space is safe for innovation? Number one is, how open are you as a leader to feedback? If you as a leader are not open to feedback and you're not able to accept feedback, then I honestly think innovation is going to be hard, right? And this is why I say this. Stay with me. If you cannot take in leadership, like feedback as a leader, what happens is when you're trying to actually go out and do something new, people will talk. People are going to have something to say. There's going to be opinions. You're going to get the feedback about whether somebody likes or doesn't like what it is that you do. And so you have to make sure that you have enough resolve and confidence in your leadership abilities to be able to withstand criticisms for innovation, right? So that's kind of number one. Okay. Number two, the other thing is, how tolerant are you for failure? Do you have a decent tolerance for failure? Innovation requires failing. You have not there is not a moment ever where anything is innovated that it doesn't fail before it works. Right? It doesn't happen. And so I think a lot of times, as we're trying to pursue this buzzword of innovation in business and in leadership and as leaders, we have to think about how much do I am I like a heavy people pleaser? I can't take feedback well. I don't do that well. Number two, do I have an aversion to failure? Right? Am I able to lean into failure? Because in order to be innovative, you have to be able to lean into failure. A lot of things are going to fail in order for you to reach the other side of innovation. Right? So that's one. And then the other piece of the puzzle, when we start to think about, is your space safe for innovation, is, have you taught your team? How are you teaching your team to think and move and operate? Right? So when you think about um like, oh, we're going to be innovative, right? As leaders, if you go in and say, okay, hey, we want to drive innovation within our team, within our organization, I'm going to do this as a leader. My question is, have you defined innovation for your team? And I think sometimes what happens with the idea of innovation is we sometimes leave, I'd say, low hanging fruit. Sometimes we think innovation is a gadget, a widget, it's technology, now AI, right? We assume that innovation sometimes lies within very technical means. But I'm going to challenge you, if you are a leader and maybe you don't deal with all the gadgets in the widgets and the technology, you still have an opportunity to find innovation within your organization. If you take a process and you're trying to figure out how to make a better process, right? So either you're iterating, if you create something new, then it's innovation, right? And actually, let's do this. Hold on. I'm going to ask Microsoft Copilot how it defines innovation. All right. So, Copilot says this. Innovation can be defined as the process of translating an idea or an invention into a good or a service that creates value for which customers will pay. It involves deliberate application of information, imagination, and initiative to derive greater or different values from resources, and encompasses all processes by which new ideas are generated and converted into useful products. In business, innovation often results when ideas are applied by the company in order to further satisfy the needs and expectations of customers. In a broader sense, innovation is about staying relevant. It's about constant push to improve, adapt, and evolve, whether it's in technology, business practice, or even social norms. Yes, loving this. It's not just about new products, it's about challenging the status quo and finding better ways to do things. Everybody can be an innovator. Everyone. Everyone has the ability and the capacity to be an innovator. And so I love that last part. It's not just about new products, it's about challenging the status quo and finding better ways to do things. What? Love it. And so when we think about innovation, right? And when we think about, actually, let me pause really quickly just to make sure. For those of you all who are joining me and watching, I know I've got a few people hopping in on LinkedIn. And if this is your first time watching, just to let you know, you are more than welcome to ask questions. Put them in the comments. I will be able to see them. I want to use this as an opportunity to share, have discussions, conversations. So if you have a question, you have a comment, don't be afraid to drop it in there. I've got a nice little widget gadget tool that enables me to interact with you all real time. All right. So when we think about innovation, I I I love this. I'm gonna tell you, I love this topic. I'll tell you why I love the topic of innovation. I love it because I'm not one who tends to play or color inside of the lines, right? And the struggle with, I think the rub that you constantly see when companies talk about innovation is, we'll call it the engine, right? Especially you see this in large companies, but you have an engine, it's a machine, and the machine runs well, right? And this goes back to, is your space safe for innovation? The machine, it runs. Things work because we know things work because that's what we're trying to do. And we know that if we do A plus B, it'll equal C, and we'll do A plus B equals C all the time. And then you're going to have somebody who comes in, and I like to call them disruptors, but in a good way, who's going to say, wait, A plus B does equal C, but do we need B to get to C? Oh, do we need B to get to C? And so when you look and understand truly about how to drive innovation in your organization, what happens is this person that says, do we need B to get to C? We're at A. Actually, we can probably get from A to C without B. The machine doesn't like it. And so in an organization, I'm always challenging, whether I'm consulting or it's a coach, is don't be afraid to find a better way to do something. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that that's the best way to do it now. And just because you did it this way and it worked here, and you're trying to find a better way to do it here, doesn't make it wrong. And so a lot of people's struggle, leaders especially, I'll say organizations, there's a culture that sits in these organizations that says that it is a safe space to create for innovation, but you don't celebrate failure. I don't think you guys heard me. Your organization does not celebrate failure. And what I mean by that, I think that, and let me define what I mean by celebrating failure. I am not talking about failure to do your job. If you fail to do your job, you shouldn't have a job. Right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Latoya showed up to work and did not perform her job. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, does your organization celebrate failure? I'm actually talking about Latoya went out, she saw something that needed to be changed, created something and wasn't successful, but now we actually know we have more information to make it better down the line. She took a risk. But most times, organizations do not celebrate your innovators and disruptors until they're successful. And that right there does not breed a safe space for innovation. Because in order for innovation to breathe and thrive, risk taking and failure the company and you as a leader have to have a level of resolve and being comfortable sitting and not always like, you got to have some risk tolerance. And so when I watch or see leaders of leaders and executives and organizations who say that they want innovation, they want innovation with success. They don't like the process of innovation. And this is sometimes what gets in the way of companies moving from point A to point B. I'll give you a great example. I'll give you an excellent example of this. Think about the evolution of the way that we work. We're having to find the challenge of status quo. Leadership right now for me is prime and ripe for innovation. The status quo of leading has shifted and changed, right? I was at an offsite with a client and it was really awesome talking to one of their HR business partners, and we were talking and it's like, yeah, like leaders now, you have to be player and coach. And that used to be the case, but now it's even more the case. And are we equipping them to be players and coaches? It can be done. But then how do we challenge the status quo? Should we even have player coach dynamics in an organization? Is that actually sustainable long way? Is there a better way to do this? We now have hybrid in the workforce. Is there a better way to show hybrid, like to lead in a hybrid environment? I think leadership is ripe and ready for innovation. How we have been leading in the past is not going to be sustainable for, I would say, especially for Gen Z and then also Gen Alpha coming into the workforce. And not that it's a bad thing, it just is. Right? Like this is the new era of business. Right? And so I want to encourage you to really think about, when you're leading, what is your tolerance for innovation? How are you celebrating this with your team? What does this actually look like? And my question for you, even as a leader, is what are you doing to learn as a leader? Right? What companies or organizations or ideas are you exploring? Leaders read. I can't stress that or say that enough. I feel like I talk about it ad nauseum. Leaders read. Leaders read, y'all. And so it becomes really, really important to understand, right, how you go about building a tolerance towards that. Right? Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to do, and I want to talk about, and I'll share, and I'm going to figure out a way to share this in a more cohesive way. But because I like to read, I want to start to I'll find, hopefully this will be potentially one way that I really start to share with you all and grow as we're coming back. Or what are some good books to really drive the conversation around innovation? And so I wanted to come up with 3 books I really thought were good for innovation and for creativity that I think leaders would love to read. And so number 1, Innovator's Dilemma. I read this in my I want to say my doctorate program that I did not finish, but that's a story for another day. I think I've talked about it somewhere else. But Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. This book is really good because it explores how successful companies can do everything right and basically still lose their market leadership or even fail because you have new unexpected competitors rise and ultimately take over the market. Okay. Really great book. Creativity Inc. This one is another really, really good book. This particular book covers it's a manual for anyone who strives for originality and the first ever and it gives you this is the first ever all access trip into the nerve center of Pixar, right? Into their story meetings, their postmortems, and the brain trust sessions where their art is born. The Lean Startup, also really good. This book provides scientific approach to creating and managing successful startups in the age when companies need to innovate now more than ever. Those are my 3 picks, I would say, for books on innovation. When we talk about creativity, because I think they're both one and the same, is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. This book talks about internal obstacles that prevent us from being creative and offering strategies to overcome them. The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. This book provides advice and exercises to help readers develop your creative muscles. And then Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And this book delves into the creative process and encourages readers to embrace your curiosity and live a creative life. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I talking about creativity when I'm talking about leaders? Let me explain to you why I'm doing this. We're talking about leaders and leadership, and I'm talking about creativity and innovation because part of your role as a leader is to be creative. And it's not necessarily, through the medium of writing or video, right? It's not necessarily going in and you have to be creative and create these beautiful slide decks, but you have to be creative in how you solution. And so building your creativity muscle as a leader is imperative for innovation, and it's imperative to be a great leader. A lot of times I love coming up. I love problem solving. It's my favorite thing to do. And also I'm a highly creative person. So for me, it's always fun to come in and find a challenge and think outside the box and create different ways and try to solve problems. And so if you are a leader, I want to challenge you to start to find ways to exercise your creativity. There we go. Because it's important for leadership. It's not even a matter of if, but there will be a time when you as a leader are going to have to figure out a problem and find a solution, and the solution has yet to be identified. Guaranteed. It's gonna happen. And so the more comfortable you are and the more comfortable you get in leaning into your creativity and being okay and learning how to fail and fail forward and fail fast, all of these different things, right? When you get used to this and you've built up a nice little buffer, you come up with solutions that I think really make you and allow you to stand out from other people. If I think about how successful my how I was able to be so successful in business, one of the ways that I was in my career was because I problem solved and I was not afraid to fail. I was totally cool just going at it. And so encourage your team to do the same. One of my favorite things to do as a leader, and you all are quiet today, so I have a pretty decent audience watching on LinkedIn. So thank you all for joining. Y'all are quiet. Make sure that if you're watching and you have a question, go ahead and add a comment, a question. I can answer them real time. I'd love to be able to engage with you if you have any questions for me as we're talking about innovation. So one of my favorite things to do, how did I encourage this as a leader? So there were times, if I have a team member and I've got something I need them to work on, um, I don't have the bandwidth to do it. It's not necessarily something that I have to do. So I'm using wisdom. We've talked about delegation a lot this season. So one of the things I was like, okay, I don't have to be the one to do this. I'll give it to somebody on my team. And what I do is I'll say, hey, here's the information. I'll try to give them as much information as possible. Right. And in the process of giving them as much information as possible, I hope that they're able to, hey, go take a stab at it. Go, this is what I need. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Here's where my head is at a little bit. Go take a stab. Why do I do that? I don't give direct, I give direction, but I allow them to wrestle through the process. Why do you let them wrestle through the process? This is why it's important to create a safe space for innovation. I allow them to wrestle through the process because as they're going and they're wrestling through how to figure out how to solve this, their creativity kicks in. A lot of times they're very close to the topic or of choice, right? And then I allow them to come back to me with the solution. And sometimes the solution is almost there and we have to make some tweaks. And sometimes they miss the mark. But here's what I do. I always make sure that I celebrate them taking the risk and going ahead and doing it first. Why do I do this? It builds resilience because I always want my people, I always want my team to be okay putting ideas out there, pushing new ideas, knowing that it's okay to fail. Failure isn't final, right? We make the adjustments and then we go. And it's fun watching your team evolve and build up more resilience when they become more accustomed to sitting in and being okay failing. If your team is terrified of you, they're not going to be they're not going to risk take. A lot of times there's no trust if that's the case. And you may not always be getting your best. I love solving problems. I love going in and saying, "Hey, this works. Can we do better?" I love iterating. I'll give you a great example. Iteration, right? Think about the iPod now to the iPhone. The iPhone led to the iPad, right? Changed the whole entire game of telecommunications just by saying, "Man, isn't that something what if we took this device that played music and had all these other trinkets and things that did it, but what if we added the phone feature?" People thought he was crazy. But I want to encourage you, like leaders. Don't be afraid of innovation. Create a space that's safe for innovation. Celebrate people taking risks. I want to challenge you to start to figure out and look, if maybe your risk tolerance isn't high. I get that. I like taking risk, right? So my tolerance is a little bit higher than some. But let's just say, for instance, for whatever reason, your risk isn't high, right? And you're like, okay, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. Okay, cool. Start small. What's some low hanging fruit? And you've done it. Here's the funny thing. I know you've done it. How many times have you, as a leader, seen something or done something or watched a process and be like, this could do better. This technically could be better, but you don't say anything. That's a good example. Find some low hanging fruit, put yourself out there, figure out some things. Cause I think for me, how I've seen my career grow largely is because I was unafraid to sometimes go out and fail. You will fail your way to success. I tell people this all the time. It's one of my biggest pieces of the puzzle that we talk about when we say when we talk about success, right? Like, oh, failure's not an option. No, failure is absolutely an option. The reality is you will fail yourself to success. You will fail your way to success. Quitting isn't an option. Failure is absolutely on the table. But I really think that true failure only exists when you quit. I'll say when you give up. I was like, it's like, sometimes you gotta know. You gotta know when to quit. You gotta know when to pivot. I won't even say quit. I'll say pivot. Right? Okay, so you all are quiet today. So hopefully this is making some sense to you all. Today as we're talking through it. I want to see if I have any other questions from the audience. If not, I've got always some good questions. And this one's actually a really good question. And so I will put this up so you all can see it. This is one of my this one's good. I like this question a lot. The question is, how do you balance the need for immediate results with the long-term process of innovation? How do you balance the need for immediate results with the long-term process of innovation? I love this question. So, how do you balance immediate needs with long-term process of innovation? So this goes back to, we've talked about it a couple times on a few episodes, but really understanding what's important, what's not, what are the needs, right? So if you as a leader, if you're spending most of your time in firefighting mode, which is things that are urgent and things that are important, innovation, you don't have space for innovation. Innovation actually sits out of the gate right now. Like innovation will sit and reside and be able to be thrive when you are, if you look at the Eisenhower matrix, innovation sits where things are important but not urgent. Now, if you're a leader right now and you spend 80% of your time in urgent, that quadrant one, things that are urgent and important, you've got to examine your work and you've got to look at your team and figure out why you all are spending so much time firefighting. Now, for some people, that's partially the nature of their business and what they do. But I'm always challenged to say, okay, even if I know that 50% of my role is always going to be firefighting, how can I create a system that allows me to maximize my time doing that? If you are spending a majority of your time on things that are urgent and important, you have a systems problem. You have process problems that are occurring, right? Now, so that's kind of immediate needs. Those are immediate results. Okay. And if you know exactly let's just say, for the quarter, for the first half of the year, you know what you need to deliver, you know what the workload is, you know what the structure is, you've planned out, you know what people's bandwidth is, then it becomes easier to actually work in innovation because you have a rhythm and a flow about how you go about doing things. And business is not 100% predictable. We all know that, right? But you can find a balance between the two. Okay. Now, next piece of the puzzle. Okay. Next piece of the puzzle. When you try to balance immediate results with long-term process of innovation, we've talked about things that are urgent and important, but we've also got to talk about things that are important but not urgent. Those are energy wasters. If you are working on things that are important but not urgent, you're robbing yourself of time and mental brain capacity and space that could be driving towards innovation. So how do you balance the immediate needs and results? You need to know what you need to deliver, when you need to deliver it by, and who is going to deliver it. That's part one. And because you know that, and you have systems in place for you to be successful to do that, you now have created space for you to have long-term success through the process of innovation. And you can iterate your way to innovation. It doesn't have to be one fell swoop. You may be able to look at a process and innovate step one of that process and then implement that innovation. And then you could go to step two. And now you can go in and iterate and then, implement there. So it doesn't have to be all at once. You don't have to innovate all at once. I would highly recommend that you not do that. So these are the pieces of the puzzle. And then this is how I would say I would go about balancing immediate results with long-term process of innovation. Let's see. This one's another good question that I want to. I kind of alluded to it already, but I'll kind of we'll recircle back for it for the sake. In what ways can leaders encourage their teams to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success? In what ways can leaders encourage their teams to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success? Here's what I'll say. One of the ways that I think leaders can actually encourage their team to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success is share your failures. Share them. I think that's one of the coolest, most authentic ways that you can go in and do this. Hey, here's a time where I did this and it didn't work. And here's how I was able to recover or sometimes not recover from it. But here's what I learned from it. So one of the ways that leaders can really encourage it is, number one, share your own failures. You would be amazed how much that in and of itself just kind of drops the shoulders of people, right? And it removes you from the pedestal for a moment. It humanizes you. You want to get people understanding and rallying and engaged. Humanizing is a huge piece of that, right? So that's one of the ways that you can do this. Is really sharing your own failures. I think will help your team embrace failure. I think how you respond when somebody fails is another key piece of the puzzle. If you are if you scold somebody, you publicly scold them, or you mock them, or they come up short, these are all things that will work against you. And so I would encourage you to really think about how you respond when they come up short. And I think there's a time for, I'll say, like a little bit of tough love. And I think there's times for grace. There's always space for empathy in both ways. And so how you respond also matters in the process. Hey, I came up short. Talk to me what happened. Okay, can we figure this out? How you respond also makes a difference in how they're able to embrace it. And there are some people who truly struggle with perfectionism. And your job as a leader is going to be really to coach them through that. And helping build their own resiliency, I guess, in the process, and going from there. All right. You all are quiet today. Man, I take 1 week off and y'all have just gotten uber quiet on me over here. If you have any questions, like, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them live. I have the ability to just answer them, share thoughts, insights. Is this resonating? Is this not resonating with you? Let me know. All right. And if not, it's totally cool. I understand. Okay, so here's where we'll start. So one of the questions that I got, I really like, and I want to share something with you all. Right, I had it loaded, and then the app crashed. So hopefully I'll be able to scoop this up, and I'm going to cue this up here in a minute. But one of the questions that I was asked that I thought was a really good question is, what's the most unconventional source of inspiration you've encountered, and how did it impact your approach to problem solving? So what's the most unconventional source of inspiration you've encountered, and how did it impact your approach to problem solving? So I want to share this one. I want to share this with you. It's a commercial. And it's an Apple commercial from, 1997. So I was a kid when this commercial aired. I actually had this printed out and in my cube when I would work, and it's by far one of my biggest sources of inspiration um, in finding ways to innovate and break the mold, and in like a relentless pursuit of better, right? Um, and I'll share a little bit more about it, but I'm going to show you the video, the commercial that is the unconventional source of inspiration for me. All right. And it's called Think Different.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Yo, I love. Oh, I get chills every single time I watch that commercial. I get chills every single time I watch that commercial. It a lot of times I'll say this, when you think about innovation and you think about believing that things can be better and challenging the status quo, what most people don't know or understand is it's a great idea to have, but it's a hard idea to practice. And a lot of times for us as leaders, our job is to encourage people to really push for where their level of genius actually resides. And I love this particular commercial because there have been times in my career, times in my life where I have absolutely felt like the crazy one, because I've been unwilling to settle for this is just the way it is and this is the way it's going to be. I've become accustomed, and a part of my DNA is to always ask why. Why can't this be better? Why can't we do better? And when I envision the future of leadership, I envision the future of leaders who are willing to ask ourselves, why can't we be better? Why can't we do better? What can be done differently? Because ultimately, the organizations that we work for and the people that we lead, right? The communities we live in are going to rely on our ability, the collective, to believe that a better way of doing things is possible. It doesn't even necessarily mean that we have to agree. But what it does mean is that I'm willing to pursue better. I'm willing to pursue better to try to achieve what excellence actually looks like. I'm not willing to be comfortable. So, as leaders, in order to create a safe space for innovation, you have to make sure that your team gets comfortable being uncomfortable. If you have a team that is very good with status quo and just cushiness and letting it ride, then you probably have not created a space for innovation. The idea of innovation is always fun and cool, but the iteration and implementation of innovation can be inconvenient. And so the question I will have for you is, what side of history will you be on as a leader? Will you remain comfortable? Or will you ask yourself, how can I serve my team? How can I serve my team? How can my team serve our stakeholders, our customers? How is this organization really impacting the community we live in? It all is interconnected. And so when we know and understand this as leaders, this is what should get you excited. It doesn't matter if you're innovating a spreadsheet. I don't care. Yo, you might have just created the best macros that save the amount of time. And because you figured out how to save time, you save the organization money. Because you save the organization money, you can save somebody's job. See how that works? We can't be afraid of innovation. We got to lean into it. The machine does not like to be disturbed. But what I'm telling you is, I'm not willing to be a cog in the wheel of the machine. And my question for you as a leader is, are you? We have to believe that there's better. We have to want better for ourselves as leaders. We have to want better for ourselves as individuals. We have to want better for the organizations that we work in and the communities in which they live, they reside, they exist, and collectively. So you all are quiet today. I actually went through all my material, which is nuts for today. So I'm going to end a little bit early, but I just want to tell you all, thank you so much for just joining me on this journey. 20 episodes. Season 1 has been officially wrapped up. I'm looking forward to coming back with more ideas, innovation, and that's part of it. Part of this break is taking and looking at what works with this and what doesn't, and where can I innovate? Where can I add systems and processes to make this better? I want to be able to come in and show up and serve you well. And part of that is just taking a break and figuring that out and making sure that I'm doing all the other things that I need to do as well. So with that being said, I just want to tell everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for hopping on and commenting. To the people who hopped on regularly, the people who were coming in and out and intermittently, I appreciate it. If one person sees this, one, and it changes their day, it lifts up their day, it gives them a boost, then it's always worth it. So I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all for season 2, which should be dropping probably in the fall. With that being said, I hope you all have an amazing week. This won't be the last time you see me, and take care.